6 weeks after the attack, the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter had become humanity's last hope. Hidden inside a hollowed-out rock designated AB7, survivors gathered in what they now called Hope Base. Admiral Olivia Reeves paced in front of the makeshift command center, her face tired but determined. As Earth's highest-ranking military officer still alive, leadership had fallen to her. "Report," she said to the room of exhausted officers. Captain Gregory Mitchell stepped forward. His uniform was worn, and a healing scar ran across his cheek. "The U.S. Defiance repairs are at 70%. We've managed to salvage parts from mining stations." "Any word from Earth?" asked Olivia. "Limited communications only," said Communications Officer Eric Jones. "The Draviks have blockaded the planet, but haven't attacked major cities yet. They're calling it protective quarantine." Olivia's jaw tightened. Protective. After they killed millions on Mars and Europa. The door slid open, and Dr. Alicia Rodriguez entered, her lab coat stained with grease. The scientist had been working nonstop since escaping Europa just before the attack. "Admiral, I have something," she said, her voice excited despite her exhaustion. "I've been studying the data we collected on Dravik biology. Their neural systems have a weakness." "What kind of weakness?" asked Mitchell. "They use a unique form of electrical signaling in their brains, different from humans. I believe we can develop a weapon that disrupts their neural patterns without harming humans." For the first time in weeks, Olivia felt a spark of hope. On the other side of the base, engineer Kevin Lawrence worked with a team on a captured Dravik shuttle. They had been reverse engineering its technology, especially its stealth capabilities. "The material absorbs sensor scans instead of reflecting them," Kevin explained to Lieutenant Sam Davidson. "If we can reproduce it, we could hide our remaining ships and bases." Sam nodded, his mind already working on another problem. "I need to get inside their systems. The Council is broadcasting messages across all channels, claiming this was all a misunderstanding." "Misunderstanding." Kevin spat the word. "Mars is gone. Europa is gone." "I know," said Sam quietly. "That's why I need to find the truth. The Council is divided on this. Some races are condemning the attack." In the medical ward, Ambassador Diane Powell finally woke up after weeks in critical condition. General Miller sat by her bed, his arm in a sling. "How bad?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Miller's face was grim. "Earth is surrounded. Mars colony is destroyed. We have about 20,000 survivors here in the asteroid belt. Some small outposts on Titan and Ganymede managed to hide." Diane closed her eyes, tears sliding down her face. "The Council. They're claiming it was a rogue faction of Draviks. They're offering aid, protection. Some people on Earth want to accept." "Don't," she said, suddenly gripping his hand with surprising strength. "It's a trap. I saw Xereth's face when the attack began." He knew. In another section of the base, a secure meeting room had been set up. Admiral Reeves called it to order. "Today we implement Protocol Aftershock," she announced to the gathered leaders. "Phase 1. Gather all surviving humans we can find. Phase 2. Develop technologies to protect ourselves. Phase 3. Determine who our real enemies are." "And then?" asked Captain Mitchell. Olivia's eyes were hard as steel. "Then we decide whether to seek peace or justice." The debate was fierce. Some argued for reaching out to friendly council races. Others demanded immediate retaliation. Sam Davidson spoke up. "Give me 3 weeks. I can infiltrate the council's communication network. Find out who knew what before the attack." Olivia nodded. "Granted." Dr. Rodriguez will continue work on the neural disruptor. Kevin Lawrence's team will develop stealth technology. As the meeting ended, Olivia stood at the viewport, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, an alliance of alien species had decided humanity was either a threat or a resource to be harvested. "They thought we begged for mercy," she whispered to herself. "They don't understand humans at all." Behind her, the survivors of humanity began to prepare not just for survival, but for a reckoning that would shake the galaxy. 5 years passed. What began as a desperate hiding place in the asteroid belt had grown into a network of bases throughout the solar system. Humanity had adapted, as it always did. Commander Peter Franklin stood on the bridge of the Revenge, the first of the new Phantom-class ships. Unlike the bulky vessels of Earth's past, this ship was sleek, dark, and nearly invisible to sensors thanks to Kevin Lawrence's breakthroughs with Dravik technology. "All systems ready, Commander," said his first officer, Linda Grant. Peter nodded. "Begin operation." The Revenge slipped silently toward a Dravik outpost on Pluto's moon Charon. The aliens had established it 2 years ago, thinking humans wouldn't venture so far out. They were wrong. "Weapons locked," reported the tactical officer. "Neural disruptors at full charge." "Fire," ordered Peter. Green pulses shot from the ship, striking the outpost with precision. Inside, the Draviks would be collapsing as their nervous systems shut down. Dr. Rodriguez's weapon working exactly as designed. "No alarms triggered," said Linda with satisfaction. "They never knew we were here." Back at the main base, now code-named Haven, Admiral Reeves reviewed the latest intelligence with her council. The asteroid had been transformed into a small city with hydroponic farms, manufacturing facilities, and living quarters carved into the rock. Franklin's mission was successful, she announced. "The Charon outpost is neutralized. We've acquired their data cores and communication logs." Military Director Marcus Kennedy nodded in approval. "That's the 3rd successful strike this month. The Draviks are getting nervous." A holographic map showed the solar system, with red dots marking council positions and blue showing human outposts. The blue dots had been growing steadily. "What about the peace delegation?" asked Elizabeth Warren, head of the diplomatic corps. Once a university professor, she now led what remained of human diplomatic efforts. Admiral Reeves pressed a button, and a new hologram appeared. An elegant alien with silver skin and large, gentle eyes. "This is Emissary Trillian of the Althean species," said Reeves. "She claims to represent the moderate council races who opposed the attack on Mars and Europa." "Can we trust her?" asked Kennedy, his voice hard with suspicion. Lieutenant Sam Davidson, now head of intelligence, spoke up. "My sources suggest the council is genuinely divided. The Altheans, Vorans, and 9 other races have been pushing for peace talks with humanity since the beginning. While the Draviks continued hunting us," Kennedy said bitterly. Reeves raised her hand for quiet. "Trillian has offered to meet on Ceres under a flag of truce. She claims to have critical information." The debate was heated. After 5 years of fighting and hiding, trust didn't come easily to the survivors. Elizabeth Warren stood firm. "We must hear them out. If there are allies among the council races, we need them." "It could be a trap," warned Kennedy. In the end, Admiral Reeves made the decision. "We'll meet them, but with precautions. Elizabeth will lead the delegation, with a Phantom-class ship standing by." 3 days later, in a sealed dome on the surface of Ceres, Elizabeth Warren met Emissary Trillian. The alien was even more striking in person, her silver skin reflecting the lights. "Thank you for agreeing to this meeting," said Trillian, her translator converting her musical language to English. "Many of us have been fighting to reach out to humans since the tragedy." "Tragedy?" Elizabeth's voice was cool. "You mean the massacre of millions of innocent people?" Trillian lowered her eyes. "Yes, a crime that many council races condemn. The attack was never approved by the full council." She placed a crystal on the table between them. "This contains proof that half the council races opposed the Dravik action and have been working to hold them accountable." Elizabeth didn't touch it. "Why come to us now, after 5 years?" "Because we've discovered something worse," said Trillian, her large eyes reflecting fear. "The Hardliners have developed what they call the Purge Protocol. It's not just containment they want anymore. They plan to fully subjugate or eliminate humanity." Elizabeth felt cold. When? Soon, said Trillian. But you're not alone anymore. Help is coming, if you'll accept it. The Shadow War grew in intensity. With information from Trillian and other sympathetic council races, human forces began striking only hostile targets while avoiding civilian areas. The neural disruptor became their signature weapon, effective against enemy troops but leaving structures intact. Admiral Reeves stood in the war room, studying attack patterns. The Draviks are pulling back from Jupiter's moons, she noted. They're concentrating their forces around Earth, said Military Director Kennedy. They're using our homeworld as a shield. And as a hostage, added Elizabeth Warren. She had returned from 3 more meetings with Trillian. The council propaganda tells a different story than reality. They're portraying us as savages who rejected peace. Sam Davidson nodded. Their public broadcasts claim humans attacked first, and they're simply containing a dangerous species, while they build weapons designed specifically to kill us, Kennedy said bitterly. A junior officer rushed into the room. Admiral, the Dominion has been destroyed. Everyone turned. The Dominion was the Dravik flagship, a massive vessel that had led the original attack on Mars. How? Demanded Kennedy. Pilot Natalie Summers, the officer reported, excitement in his voice. She flew a 1-person fighter through their defense grid and planted charges on their engine core. Did she make it out? Asked Elizabeth. The officer's face fell. No, ma'am. She triggered the charges manually when her remote detonator failed. Admiral Reeves bowed her head for a moment. Add her name to the wall of heroes. In another part of Haven, Dr. Ryan Blackwood worked in a secured laboratory. His controversial project had support from military leadership, but faced opposition from many civilians. Subject 27 shows increased muscle density, enhanced reaction time, and oxygen processing at 150% human baseline, he dictated into his recorder. The genetic modifications appear stable. His assistant, Dr. Patricia Wells, looked uncomfortable. Ryan, we need to address the ethical concerns. We're changing human beings. The Draviks changed the rules when they attacked us, Ryan replied. These volunteers understand the risks. But creating super soldiers, enhanced defenders, Ryan corrected. And they're still human. We're not monsters like the Draviks. Their argument was interrupted by an alarm. The lab sealed itself automatically. What's happening? Asked Patricia. Ryan checked his console. Breach in Sector 7. Possible infiltration. On Earth, the situation grew worse. Humans who had accepted Council protection began disappearing from their settlements. The Council claimed they were being relocated for safety, but no one ever saw them again. In orbit around Neptune, Captain Gregory Mitchell's ship, now renamed Ghost, monitored transmissions from a hidden Dravik facility on Triton. Sir, I've decrypted their communications, reported his communications officer. You need to see this. Mitchell looked at the translated text and felt sick. Bioharvesting. They're using humans for biological resources. It appears they're extracting hormones, genetic material, and neural tissue, the officer said, her voice shaking, from the humans who disappeared. Mitchell's decision was immediate. Contact Major Sophia Daniels. Her team is closest to Triton. Tell her to infiltrate and gather evidence, but do not engage unless necessary. 2 days later, Major Daniels sent back images that would haunt everyone who saw them. Thousands of humans in stasis pods, being systematically harvested by automated machines. We can't leave them, she said in her transmission. Request permission to liberate the facility. Mitchell knew it was dangerous. How many guards? Heavy security, but we've identified their patrol patterns. We can do this, sir. After consulting with Admiral Reeves, permission was granted. Major Daniels led her team of 12 soldiers, some of Dr. Blackwood's enhanced volunteers, into the facility. The rescue operation was successful. 2,714 humans were freed from the harvesting facility. Major Daniels lost 3 of her team, but managed to capture vital research data. Back at Haven, when the survivors told their stories, the last voices calling for peaceful resolution with the hostile council races fell silent. "This ends," said Admiral Reeves. "Prepare Operation Lazarus." 10 years had passed since the first attack. The Galactic Council that once spoke as one voice now openly fractured over what many races called the human question. In a grand chamber on a neutral world, representatives from 14 council races formalized their separation from the others. They called themselves the Concordat. Ambassador Villanorm of the Althians stood before the assembly. "Today we officially recognize that the attack on humanity was unjust and unauthorized. We withdraw from the old council and seek alliance with the human survivors." The Dravik representative hissed in anger. "Your species will regret this betrayal. Humans are dangerous and unpredictable. They must be contained. Or perhaps you fear them because they've proven stronger than you expected," replied Villanorm calmly. The remaining 13 council races, now calling themselves the Hegemony, departed in anger. The separation was complete. In the Haven base, Admiral Reeves met with the human leadership and Concordat representatives. Holographic displays showed tactical information from across the solar system. "The Hegemony forces are gathering for a major assault on Earth," explained Admiral Reeves. "We believe this is their final attempt to break human resistance." Elizabeth Warren, now serving as diplomatic liaison with the Concordat, looked troubled. "What about the civilians still on Earth?" Colonel Jason Howard stepped forward. His once dark hair was now streaked with gray. "We've been preparing for this. Operation Exodus is ready." Howard had spent years developing an underground network on Earth. Using stealth shuttles and Concordat technology, his teams had been secretly evacuating humans from Earth, moving them to secure locations beyond the Hegemony's reach. "How many can we save?" asked Admiral Reeves. "With the Concordat's help, millions," Howard replied. "But not everyone. We need more time." Villanorm's silver skin shimmered under the lights. "The Hegemony is constructing something in the Ta-CD system. Our intelligence suggests it's a superweapon of some kind." "Do we know what it does?" asked Military Director Kennedy. "They call it the Star Killer," said Villanorm. "Beyond that, we have little information." Admiral Reeves made her decision. "Colonel Howard, you have 3 weeks to evacuate as many people as possible from Earth. After that, we implement Operation Lazarus." Operation Lazarus was humanity's most ambitious plan yet. A coordinated counterattack across 17 star systems, targeting Hegemony military installations. With Concordat support, human forces now had the ships and technology to strike beyond the solar system. On Earth, the city once called New Denver had become the last major human stronghold. Colonel Howard directed evacuation efforts from an underground command center. "Shuttles 7 through 15 are away," reported his assistant. "That's another 10,000 civilians clear." Howard nodded grimly. "Hegemony ships are moving into position. We're running out of time." Above them, the sky filled with Dravik warships. The final siege of Earth had begun. In the Concordat meeting chamber, Elizabeth Warren addressed the alien representatives. "We appreciate your support, but we need to be clear. Humanity won't settle for just survival anymore." The aliens looked at each other uneasily. "What do you mean?" asked a Voran delegate. "Justice," Elizabeth said simply. "The architects of the Mars and Europa massacres must be held accountable. The truth about the bioharvesting must be revealed to all species." Villanorm nodded slowly. "This is fair. But you should know that the Hegemony fears humans for a reason." She activated a holographic display showing ancient records. There are predictions, thousands of years old, about humanity's potential. The hologram showed star charts and calculations with Earth highlighted. These records suggest that humans may eventually surpass all council races in development and ability, explained Villanorm. The attack 10 years ago wasn't just about resources or territory. It was about preventing your species from reaching its potential. Elizabeth studied the records with surprise. They attacked us because of what we might become. Yes, said Velanorm. And based on how you've survived and adapted, those predictions appear to be correct. The battle for Earth lasted 7 days. Despite Colonel Howard's efforts, millions of humans remained trapped when the hegemony forces unleashed their full might. The city of New Denver became the final battleground, with enhanced human soldiers fighting alongside regular troops. Western sector is lost, reported a dirt-covered soldier. Civilians are pinned down in the underground shelters. Colonel Howard looked at the tactical display. Red dots representing hegemony forces surrounded the blue center of human resistance. How many ships do we have left? 3 functional transports. Not enough for everyone still here. Howard made the hard choice. Evacuate the children first, then medical personnel. And you, sir? Howard checked his weapon. I stay until the end. From space, Admiral Reeves watched as Earth, the birthplace of humanity, fell to enemy forces. But the hegemony's victory would be short-lived. All ships report ready, Admiral, said her communications officer. Reeves nodded. Begin Operation Lazarus. Across 17 star systems, human and Concordat ships emerged from stealth mode. The counterattack began simultaneously, catching the hegemony forces completely by surprise. The Phantom-class ships, now hundreds strong, struck at military bases, shipyards, and command centers. On a small research station orbiting Saturn, Dr. William Carpenter activated his invention for the first time. The quantum strike technology was humanity's most closely guarded secret. Targeting Dravik Command Center in the Arcturus system, he said, his fingers moving across the controls. Quantum coordinates locked. The device hummed as energy built up. Then a flash of light. Thousands of light years away, the Dravik Command Center exploded as space itself seemed to fold and deliver the explosive payload directly inside their shields. It works, whispered Dr. Carpenter. We can strike anywhere, instantly. The hegemony, suddenly finding itself under attack on multiple fronts, called for emergency talks. The Supreme Forum, the highest authority among all council races, convened for the first time in decades. High Chancellor Xerath, much older now but still leading the Vesperians, addressed the gathered representatives. This war must end before more worlds are destroyed. The humans have proven they cannot be defeated. They are animals, shouted the Dravik leader. They refuse all peace offers. Peace requires justice, said Velanorm calmly. Humanity has suffered genocide. They demand accountability. As the debate raged, human forces continued their advance. The quantum strike technology made their attacks unpredictable and unstoppable. With the Concordat providing intelligence and support, the hegemony found itself losing ground everywhere. On a recaptured human colony world, Lieutenant Kelly Martinez explored an ancient archive that the Draviks had been studying before their defeat. What she found shocked her. Admiral, she reported via secure channel, I found records dating back thousands of years. They contained detailed predictions about humanity's development. What kind of predictions? Asked Reeves. According to these calculations, humans are the only species with the potential to achieve what they call transcendence, a state beyond physical limitations. The Draviks didn't just fear our technology or our numbers. They feared we might evolve into something beyond their understanding. Admiral Reeves considered this information carefully. Is there any indication this transcendence is actually possible? The math checks out, said Martinez. And there's more. The records showed genetic tampering with early humans by an unknown race, possibly to accelerate our development. This revelation spread quickly among human leadership. Some saw it as validation of humanity's potential. Others worried it might make peace even more difficult to achieve. Back at the Supreme Forum, the vote was finally taken. By a narrow margin, the council races agreed to formal peace negotiations with humanity. The hegemony representatives reluctantly accepted the decision. We will send our most respected diplomat, announced High Chancellor Xerath. This conflict must end. Admiral Reeves received the message with skepticism. They're only talking peace because they're losing. Elizabeth Warren nodded in agreement. True, but this is our chance to reshape the galaxy on our terms. Prepare a delegation, ordered Reeves. We'll meet them on Proxima Centauri II. But keep our forces ready. I don't trust them. Proxima Centauri II glowed blue-green under its red sun. Once a minor outpost, it now hosted the most important diplomatic meeting in galactic history. The neutral planet had been prepared with equal accommodations for all species. Chancellor Victor Harrison led the human delegation. Once a history professor, he had lost his family on Mars, and now served as humanity's chief negotiator. His face showed little emotion as he entered the Grand Council chamber. Chancellor Harrison greeted High Chancellor Xerath with a formal bow. We welcome humanity to these peace talks. Victor did not return the gesture. We are here to discuss terms, not pleasantries. Around the massive circular table sat representatives from all 27 council races. The hegemony members clustered together on one side, the Concordat on the other. Armed guards from all factions lined the walls. We offer significant reparations, began the Dravik representative, pushing forward a data crystal. Knowledge exchange, developmental aid, and territorial concessions. Victor didn't touch the crystal. You speak of reparations as if this were a simple border dispute. Your forces massacred millions of humans. Your scientists harvested our people for biological material. Murmurs ran through the Concordat representatives. Some had not known the full extent of the atrocities. Those were unauthorized actions by rogue elements, insisted the Dravik, but his voice lacked conviction. Victor's eyes were cold. We recovered the records. Your council voted. 13 races approved the attack on Mars and Europa. 6 abstained. Only 8 opposed. Silence fell across the chamber. What does humanity want? Asked Xerath finally. Peace requires justice, Victor replied, echoing the words that had become humanity's mantra. Justice requires accountability. The negotiations continued for days. The hegemony offered increasingly desperate concessions as reports arrived of more human victories. With the quantum strike technology, human forces systematically destroyed military targets across hegemony space. On the 5th day, Ambassador Villanorm approached Victor privately. The Concordat proposes integration of human military leadership into a joint defense force, she said. We believe humanity's perspective would strengthen us all. Victor considered this an interesting offer, but trust must be earned. There is something else you should know, Villanorm added, her voice lower. Our intelligence has discovered the true purpose of the Star Killer project. She showed him classified images of a massive installation in the Tau Ceti system. It's designed to trigger artificial supernovas, she explained. The hegemony planned to use it against human-occupied systems as a last resort. Victor's face paled. How close is it to completion? Too close. Weeks, perhaps. Back in the negotiations, Victor said nothing about this revelation. Instead, he focused on establishing accountability for past crimes. The hegemony representatives grew increasingly uncomfortable as he listed specific atrocities with dates, locations, and responsible officials. You speak as if you hold all the power, snapped the Dravik representative finally. We do, replied Victor simply. Your fleets are in retreat. Your military bases are being destroyed one by one. The only reason we're talking is because we prefer justice to vengeance. On a secure channel, Victor contacted Admiral Reeves. The Star Killer facility. Can we neutralize it? Already in progress, she replied. Major Daniels is leading the operation personally. In the Tau Ceti system, Major Sophia Daniels led a team of enhanced soldiers toward the massive Star Killer installation. Using stealth technology and Concordat intelligence, they bypassed the outer defenses. Primary target located, she reported. It's even bigger than the scan showed. Her team moved efficiently through the facility, placing quantum charges at key points. When Dravik security forces discovered them, The fighting was intense but brief. The enhanced soldiers moved with blinding speed, their neural disruptors dropping enemies before they could sound alarms. Charges set. Daniels reported 15 minutes later. All teams accounted for. Beginning extraction. As her ships pulled away, the Star Killer facility erupted in a series of precisely calculated explosions. The superweapon that could have destroyed multiple star systems collapsed into ruin. At the peace talks, Victor received confirmation of the mission's success just as the day's session was beginning. "Before we continue," he said calmly, "you should know that the Star Killer project has been neutralized. Your last resort is gone." The hegemony representatives looked at each other in shock and fear. The balance of power had shifted completely. Now they would negotiate on humanity's terms. 15 years had passed since the attack on Mars colony. The galaxy looked very different now. In the grand chamber of the new Galactic Assembly on a rebuilt Earth, representatives from 32 species gathered. The old council structure was gone, replaced by a system where each species had equal voice regardless of their technology level or military power. Admiral Olivia Reeves, her hair now completely white, stood at the center podium. She had become a living legend, the woman who led humanity from near extinction to galactic leadership. "Today marks the 5th anniversary of the Earth Accords," she began. 5 years of peace after a decade of war. The assembled representatives nodded respectfully. Some of the former hegemony races still showed discomfort, but none dared speak against her. When the Dravik homeworld fell 3 years ago, many expected humanity to destroy it completely. Reeves continued, "That was what they would have done to us. But we chose a different path. On the rebuilt Dravik homeworld, human aid workers helped restore ecosystems damaged during the final battles. The Draviks who had surrendered now worked alongside humans and Concordat members, rebuilding under the watchful eye of human peacekeepers. The tribunals have concluded their work," Reeves announced. "Those directly responsible for war crimes against humanity have faced justice. With this, we close the formal accounting of the war." In a secure prison on a distant moon, the former Dravik military leadership and scientists who had conducted the human harvesting experiments served their life sentences. Justice had been swift but fair. Chancellor Victor Harrison, now head of the Galactic Assembly, rose to speak. 15 years ago, the old council feared what humanity might become," he said. "They attacked us because of ancient predictions that we would one day surpass them. In doing so, they created the very future they feared." He gestured to the display showing human Concordat fleets patrolling peaceful trade routes. Human resourcefulness, combined with Concordat knowledge, has created technologies benefiting all species. The neural integration techniques Dr. Rodriguez developed to disrupt Dravik brains now help heal neural diseases across all species. The quantum technology once used for weapons now powers instant communication and safer travel. Ambassador Velanorm, representing the former Concordat races, nodded in agreement. The human capacity to adapt, to survive against impossible odds, and then to build rather than destroy. This is why the predictions about humanity were correct. In the audience sat heroes of the war. Colonel Jason Howard, who had survived Earth's fall by hiding with a group of civilians. Dr. William Carpenter, whose quantum strike technology had turned the tide. Lieutenant Kelly Martinez, who had discovered the ancient predictions. And Major Sophia Daniels, who had destroyed the Star Killer facility. They sat among younger humans who had grown up during the war, never knowing Earth as it once was. But the new Earth, rising from the ashes, had become something greater, the center of a new galactic civilization. "We remember our dead," said Admiral Reeves, her voice softening. "The millions lost on Mars and Europa. The children who never grew up. The families torn apart. We carry their memory and their legacy." A moment of silence fell across the chamber. "But we also look forward," she continued with renewed strength. "Humanity has proven itself not just in war, but in peace. We didn't want revenge. We wanted justice. And now we build a future worthy of those we lost." As she finished speaking, the chamber erupted in applause. Even former enemies acknowledged the truth of her words. Later that evening, Admiral Reeves stood alone at the memorial wall, where the names of every known human casualty were inscribed. She touched the section listing the Mars colony dead. "We did it," she whispered to those who could not hear. "We survived. We won. And we didn't lose ourselves in the process." Beyond the windows of the memorial, the lights of a rebuilt city shone bright against the night sky. In orbit above, ships from dozens of worlds moved peacefully through space. Humanity had faced extinction and emerged not just victorious, but transformed. The Galactic Council had pleaded for peace, but humanity wouldn't forgive until justice was done. And now, justice complete, true peace could finally begin.